the CCL Alumni Webinar, Leading Through Change, presented by Shelley Tompkins of the Center for Creative Leadership. As a CCL alum, we know your leadership journey continues beyond the classroom, and we want to support you in it. We are excited to offer quarterly alumni webinars to keep your development going. My name is Tracy Dobbins, and I'll serve as your CCL webinar host. CCL is consistently ranked by alumni like you as one of the best executive education development providers in the world. Our work is based on significant research from our own elite teams to the finest global sources, and we share it readily with you today in this discussion. Now I'd like to welcome our presenter. Shelley Tompkins is a Leadership Solutions Partner at the Center for Creative Leadership and works with global clients to help leaders become extraordinary performers, visionaries, collaborators, as well as critical and strategic thinkers. She is a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in market-leading organizations and Fortune 500 corporations. Shelley successfully developed and implemented leadership and talent development programs, as well as led organizational effectiveness initiatives, leveraging best practices across diverse industries. Her collaborative leadership style is used to build consensus to improve skills and knowledge, which has led to improved employee performance and engagement, leadership effectiveness, and improved organizational outcomes. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and hello again, everyone. By the time we end our time together today, what I'm hoping we'll accomplish is what you see on the screen there. We're going to work through your key leadership challenge that you were asked to complete as part of the pre-work so that you can have a real-time application of the content from today. You're going to learn about your preferences towards change, and you'll begin learning the process of change and how to use the 3 C's, and that's communication, collaboration, and commitment to create effective change. This is our roadmap, just showing you just kind of the order in which we will proceed through our time together. Now, as part of the pre-work for this webinar, you were asked to select a leadership topic and an image that represented what that topic looked like to you. Interestingly enough, out of 103 people, all but 3 selected teamwork. And that tells me that you have a sense for what teamwork looks like. Well, what you see on the screen is a mosaic of all the pictures you selected as a group. And I'd like for you to indicate in the chat box, if you did in fact select one of the images, indicate in the chat box by just giving me a word or two why you selected this image on teamwork. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes, and this is the collection. So all that were selected is represented here, which means there were a lot of people that selected the same image. So I'll give you a second just to type out why you selected that image for teamwork.
And again, you can just send it to all participants, and we can see each other's responses.
Okay, let's see what we have here. So the team looks like they're working together to steer the boat and get it to safety. Vulnerability, absolutely. All for one goal. I love this one. It appears to be multiple people, each doing their part to contribute to a mutually beneficial outcome, even if there are existing tensions, differences, personality, conflicts. That's absolutely awesome. Multi-sector, collaboration to build a bridge. We're going to talk about collaboration. Focus on the end goal of the mission, people working together. Let's see, what else? Let's see, go down some more. All hands to the deck in a storm, all working together to deliver a safe passage. Working together, coordination, working together. Says the selected green fills with workers because they all look as if they're working to achieve the same goal. So kind of some common themes here around working together, a common goal. Well, maintaining a sense of teamwork is critical when change takes place in an organization. And our focus today will be on looking at the people side of change and understanding the importance of maintaining that sense of teamwork and collaboration before, during, and after change. So let's look at this question here. Why do people change? There are essentially three major reasons why people change. Some people change to maximize what they value. Some people change because they're looking for something new, something different, something better. And then some people change due to untenable circumstances or situations. Basically, they're in a position that simply cannot be defended as something they can stay with. So we know why people change, but do people really like to change? Well, what our research and experience shows us is that people tend to prefer change that they want and that they can control. And they tend to resist, obviously, then those things they don't want and cannot control. I want you to think about yourself and change. People have different preferences for how change should happen. And there are three main styles that fall on a continuous spectrum. So let's think about this spectrum starting on the far left. You have what we call builders. They accept existing structures and they prefer change that's incremental. They actually enjoy predictability. And then somewhere in the middle, we have folks that we would call connectors. They explore the structures, they prefer change that's functional, and they enjoy being in the middle of the road. And then on the far right, we have our explorers. They challenge the structures, and they prefer change that's expansive, and they tend to enjoy risk. Well, let me just say that each preference is valuable in its own way. Effective groups combine the strengths of all three according to the situation. So if you completed the assessment ahead of time, it was a part of the pre-work, then you know your preference, and you can be more self-aware of your own approach to change. If you did not complete the assessment and based upon the descriptions I provided, and I'll go over them again, I want you to write down the preference you believe best describes you. So again, there are the builders on the far left. They enjoy predictability, incremental change, connectors somewhere in the middle, change that's functional, and explorers, they like change that's expansive or enjoy risk. So think about what best describes you. So knowing your own style and where others tend to lean is important in how you work with them through change. Regardless of your change preference, we know that change is important for our organizations. There is more change in our organization now than a few years ago, and change can be difficult for people involved. Let's look at why change fails and the 3 C's of change: communication, collaboration, and commitment. So in the chat box, I'd like you to give your best estimate or guess at the answer to this question. What % of organizational change efforts succeed? So let's take a look at your responses. Okay, we've got 30%, 25%, 10%, 20%, 80%. Wow, that's pretty optimistic. 50%, 40%. Well, we're all over the map. Actually, according to several studies, only 30% succeed, which means 70% fail. So why is that the case? To answer that question, we need to better understand change leadership. The slide that's on the screen illustrates the difference between change management, you see on the right, process focus, and change leadership, people focus. Well, many leaders focus on a whole bunch of change management, the new system, the new structure, processes that are being developed and implemented. And they say that this is the hard stuff and that change leadership is the soft stuff. Well, let me just tell you something. There's nothing soft about this work. The real truth-telling and public learning is some of the hardest work you'll ever do. The future of change in your organization demands it. But building a people-focused approach is what's most useful. And it has 3 areas that are not easy because they both require intention and presence. 1, you have to be intentional in communicating with your people. Secondly, you have to collaborate with others. And lastly, you must demonstrate commitment in the presence of others in order to reinforce their active engagement. So let's go deeper into the 3 C's of change. This slide here reflects why active communication is so important and the role it plays in effective change. We need to communicate in order to achieve results through others, and communication aids in meeting people's needs. Well, when people's needs are met, we're able to have better connections, and when we connect with others, we're in a better position to achieve results through them. One of the keys to understanding change is actually the different perspective of leaders and followers. When you have connections throughout your organization during a change, you'll find what's on this slide to be true. And as you can see, leaders think one way and followers think another. A change-capable leader will bring understanding and opposing views together to create understanding from both groups. Now, if a leader is going to be successful at change, they need to clearly understand not only how the leaders think about the change, but also how the followers are thinking as well. And during change, followers are thinking about the impact on themselves now, as well as the cost involved. And even a small change of moving to another part of the office can create anxiety about, who am I leaving? What about my friends? Do I take my chair? Will I have the same light? And I kind of hear some of you chuckling in the back because you've probably heard some of this. Well, all of these are important considerations a leader must review to help that person make a successful change. Thinking for a moment about your change challenge, your key change challenge, I want you to think about it and the impact that change has in terms of the followers, those who have to make the change happen. And ask yourself the question, are you addressing issues in the present? What about the cost to the individual as well as what it means to them? Going through change is key to understanding change. So just imagine for a moment, I know we're all on the phone together, but let's pretend we were in the same room together. And I asked you to move to a different seat from the one you're sitting in. But I provided you with the information for why we were changing, along with the new direction, the strategy, and what we want to achieve as a result of this change. In the chat box, I want you to tell me how might you react or feel if I shared all that information with you up front. Someone said, perfect. Relaxed, informed, very easy to get up and move. I'm still hesitant. Too much information. Let's just move to another seat. I love that. Comfortable. Well, where's my input? Engaged. No big deal. Makes sense. Confident. I love the responses here. Well, remember that slide that talked about the difference between the leaders and the followers? Well, in this case, I'm the leader. And I can see a lot of different benefits of moving. I think you'll be able to meet some new people. You can network effectively, see a different perspective, get away from people you don't like. Well, there are a lot of different benefits that will help you in the future. So stepping back, as you're getting ready to make a change, these are the key points to beginning the change communications. So think about where you are in your change challenge as we go through this next section. This next segment is really a conversation about what people endure when they go through a change. First, they have feelings about what's ending, then how to go forward through the neutral zone, and finally, how to begin again. Let's see how you as a leader can help them through these stages. Well, following a change initiative, people may feel a little resistant to going forward. This is the fear and anger you often find in the ending stage of change and transition. Think about yourself. When something ends, how do you feel? Let me see your responses in the chat room. How do you feel when something ends? weary, sad or anxious, sad, sometimes relieved, sometimes sad, tense, uncertain, anxious, relieved, what will I lose, reflective, what comes next. All of these are very natural feelings and tendencies. Well, here are some of the tips to clean endings. Define what it is and what's not over. So where we are and what's not over. What are you losing? Allow people to take a piece of the past with them. Find some way to mark the ending. Try to anticipate your own feelings around them and accept them, and try to reinforce what others may be gaining. So some ways to make a clean ending. Now, I realize that some of you may be in the neutral zone with your challenge, and some of you have already started new beginnings. Well, as we stated, the neutral zone is really tough because people in this stage know what has ended, but have not started movement towards a new beginning. Thus, some people refer to this as the valley of chaos. Well, new beginnings is tough because people have to develop trust in a new vision, and they need to be constantly reminded and rewarded for the trust they show in order to keep moving forward. Thinking about the neutral zone, I want you to ask yourself, what action should I take to mitigate these feelings? On the slide, the next slide, are some of what our research shows in terms of navigating in the neutral zone. Realize that individuals may experience the emotion of feeling panic, escape. They're just not sure if the change was a mistake or not, and they may react with feelings of frustration, worry, and or concern, which some of you expressed in the chat box. Here are some tips for navigating the neutral zone. Guess what? Accept it. Expect yourself and others to be untethered, doubtful, and stressed out, but we have to move forward. Avoid the victim mentality and help others to find a way forward. Set some short-term goals for yourself and your team. And don't expect others or yourself to be perfect. Listen to how others describe the situation. Get together with others is a great idea. Try your best to balance complaining with problem solving as well. And ask everyone, are there some hidden opportunities in the confusion? This next phase tends to be the most difficult part of change. So as we look at moving towards new beginnings, the key to this stage is to keep people moving. It's likely that they have feelings of apprehension of what the future will hold. They may feel a sense of release, or the opposite. They may be fearful. Well, this is a time when they need direction as they're asking themselves whether or not this new beginning is really going to work. Here are some tips for new beginnings to be mindful of. Okay. Think about, maybe the new way really won't work out. That's very possible. Trigger memories of other beginnings, hopefully positive ones, of course. There's no hiding in the neutral zone. We've got to be mindful of that. Communicate where you are, how you're feeling. Try to celebrate some small victories. Reward those that move forward, and consolidate improvements and tell others. Well, we've talked about your change preference and how to help people through the various change stages by understanding emotions and maintaining open communication. Now we're going to talk about the second C, the C in collaboration. This is understanding yourself and your team. It's important for change, and making it happen and making it stick requires moving outside of your team and collaborating with people who may not be under your control. Collaboration is critical in order to gain support, resources, but also to meet other people's individual needs. Because when you're not able to understand and meet the needs of others, this increases the possibility for effective change to take place. That is, when you meet those needs, you've got a greater chance of success with your change. Okay, I want us to do an activity. It's going to require you to have a blank piece of paper, so I'm going to give you a second to find a sheet of paper. And once you have your paper, I want you to start with creating a circle in the middle, just as you see on the screen. So we're going to create a diagram with you in the center. So please write the word me in the center of the circle. Okay? All right. Now I want you to think back to your change challenge and use this activity to build out your network of people that you'll need to collaborate with. So as you think about your key change challenge, who are the key stakeholders, holdouts, and other people you need to collaborate with to make your change challenge a success? Keep in mind that these people don't need to be outside your team. They could be your team members as well. And as you build this network, I want you to put the people who are easiest to work with closer to you. Like in this example, we've got Elaine and Jerry very close. And place the people who require more energy further away from you, like Spencer and Heidi. And be sure to include your boss. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to just write down, jot about 4 or 5 names at this point. Okay. Now look at who you placed on your map and where they are in relation to you. I want you to take a few moments and write down some notes about the characteristic of each person. And I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to do that. So maybe take about 2 or 3, because you can finish this map when we finish, but about 2 or 3 characteristics about folks on your chart. Okay, so now we know who we have to work with. Let's go deeper. Let's think about who might resist and who's in favor of our change. Again, think back to your change challenge. How much buy-in do you need? Who's provided it, and who do you need to get it from? Look at your collaboration map and ask, who will endorse this change? So these are the people we need to thank and gain insight from and provide early rewards to. But they may not be the people we spend the most time with. You might also use them to help reach out to resistors and fence-sitters and influence them in a positive way to support your change. Why do you want to know who's resisting this change? Well, because these are the people we might need to convince about the change. They're also the people who may not speak highly about the change to others. And then there are the fence-sitters. They are important because they may be the easiest to convince about change, depending on what's important to them. This may be where you spend most of your time. You know who the endorsers are and the resistors too, but the fence-sitters can really help with the rapid shift in support to change, bring about change in your initiative. Look below each category. You're going to see a plus sign, an X, and an equal sign. Any guess what we're going to do with these symbols? If you said put them on the collaboration map, then you're absolutely right. So look at your map and add them to the names. In our case, you'll see that Spencer, Heidi, and Newman, they're all endorsers, where George and Kramer are fence sitters. So I'm going to give you a moment just to do that. Plus, X, or equal. All right, this is the final step of the collaboration map. This is where we're going to rate support. So what level of support do you need from these people you've identified? We've simplified this with a 1 to 8 scale, 1 representing that I will not sabotage it, and 8 reflects overwhelming support. Okay, I want you to put that on the map as well, 1 to 8. So what you should have now is the outline of a plan for developing collaboration across your network. I'm curious to know what your map says to you. So I want you to take a moment, just reflect on your map, and in the chat box, just tell me, what is your map revealing about collaboration relative to your key change challenge? So what is it showing you? Let's see what comes to mind. Okay. Resistance within the team. Okay. Endorsers are outside the team. Interesting. Don't need a ton of support from resistors. Resistors are those not located at headquarters. I have decision makers that need to be on board. Great insight. Crystallizes what I've already thought about different people on the team. You're going to have a tough time with them. And I love what Kelly said. This helps me to see where to focus. All right, so now we know who to talk with and how to approach them. Let's look at what we might want to talk with them about. So here are some strategies we can employ when working with getting others so that they're champions for our initiative. Oftentimes when you draw attention to the actual need or the opportunity for you and for them, that helps people. Try to involve others in the ownership of the idea so that it is not just your initiative, it's our initiative. Hey, you might have to call in some favors from others who you have supported in the past. You might want to try to arrange for a trade-off. Try to start in areas where you can act without threatening anyone. You know, you might have to adjust your goals somewhat to avoid resistance. What about compromising with those who are opposed? And you might just need to wait for opportunities. In your organization, there may be some other events taking place that you could piggyback on. That would be great. And think about asking one of your stakeholders to run interference for you. All right, there is one more C left, the C that represents commitment, and this C is about you. It's about you making the changes in yourself and your team in service of a desired future. Now is when you have to make that choice. So we've looked at our change preferences. We know who we need to talk to and the various stages we can use as we speak with them. It's now about doing it. So before we take questions, let me share with you a quote. And the quote is, "There is nothing permanent except change." You know, it's good for us to learn how to effectively navigate through change. And why? Because it's the one constant that we can depend on having.
Great. Thank you very much, Shelley. We're going to open it up for some questions here, and just chat your questions into the chat box, and we will address those. Thank you for your all your participation so far through the different questions that Shelley has posed. First question is, what is one of the greatest pitfalls that organizations fall into when trying to implement change?
You know, what I would say is that the greatest pitfall is they try to do this without people. As I mentioned, there's such a great focus around change management versus change leadership. And so when you tend to focus just on the processes and structures and systems and you fail to include people, that absolutely is one of the greatest pitfalls.
Devers asks, what are your tips for to bring resistors on board?
I would say when you have resistors, as we talked about, I think using some of the same tactics that you would use in working with your fence sitters, figure out what's in it for them, the WIFM approach. Help them to see, maybe what they can have part ownership of what you're working on. They truly are the hardest ones to convince, and I would probably spend more time on the fence sitters, but if that resistor is a critical person, I would really spend some time with them trying to understand how we can collaborate and make this about kind of an hour versus just something that's done for yourself.
Thank you. And Susan's building on that. How when a resistor is a senior leader, others need to get on board.
Yeah, that's one of those critical people, so there's no way around that person. I think, again, tying it into what's important for them. So if that senior leader has, some initiative that's really important and critical to them, being able to tie your initiative in some way to that particular initiative is probably going to be the best way for you to do that. And here again, this is where you're going to be using your influencers or supporters who may have a good relationship with them that can help you along. So don't feel like you have to do this all by yourself.
If we were only able to focus on one thing in dealing with change, what would that be?
I would say absolutely focus on communication. That's the thing that, we're going through change. We don't have all the answers, and sometimes we feel fearful of sharing where we are. I think the most prudent and honest thing you can do is say, hey, we're trying to figure it out. So communication is that one thing. If you have one thing, just make sure you're communicating where you are, where you're hoping to go. Make sure people have opportunities to kind of voice their ideas and their concerns. Someone brought that up actually in the changing the seat exercise when they said, what about my input? So, being able to create those spaces where people can ask questions and you provide, real-time information is critical.
Any tips on how to best coach first-time line manager running their first change initiative?
Yeah, you know what? I would first of all have them listen to this recording and really help them to understand those 3 C's. We've done extensive research on this topic, and teaching them about the importance of collaboration, communication, and commitment is really essential. So I would absolutely have them listen to this, have them do the map that you just completed yourself in terms of thinking about who might they need to bring on board. But communication is key, but absolutely have them think about those 3 focus areas.
And on the opposite end, how would you deal with a group of experienced team members who have seen change many times before with little or no benefit for them individually?
Yeah, that is a challenging one right there. So, yeah, they've kind of seen it done, right? And they've seen change come and go. Well, I would have to say you've got to look at this as, hey, this is a new day and a new initiative. And I think you really have to think about what could be the benefit for them. So they didn't see any in the past, what might be there for them today. So maybe reframing this so that you really can help, people to see how it might benefit them. I think the other piece with this is getting everyone oriented around this common goal or strategy and seeing how the change initiative helps us to get there. At CCL, since you all have been through our workshops, I know you were exposed to DAC, which stands for Direction, Alignment, and Commitment. And when you can get folks to buy into that end goal, then they become more aligned and committed to whatever it is you're working on. So really believe getting them connected to the direction and the one goal, the direction we're all rowing to on our boat, is going to help to get that alignment and commitment.
Amy wants to know, how do you communicate the change or changes when there are many and they are constantly changing?
Yeah, that's a hard one, Amy. I think, again, how can you intertwine them? What's the connectivity? What's the overall goal? Hopefully all of these initiatives, the change is taking place because we're trying to either move the organization or the team or the area in a particular place or direction. So seeing how you can tie those together and communicate, perhaps maybe there needs to be some kind of communication that maps it out. This initiative will take us here, this initiative deals with this issue, but overall, this is where we're trying to go. So I think, that connectivity is going to be important.
What do we do with those who sit on the wall and behave like they are in agreement when they are actually strongly opposed to the change?
Yeah, those bad people. So they're talking behind your back. They're pretending to be fence sitters, but they're really resistors. And again, they're not the ones that are going to speak highly about your change. So I think here again, how can you find others to come along with you, alongside you, to help with those people? Who knows them, or again, these are influential people. They're critical. Better understand what their needs are. Remember, I talked about the different strategies that you could use. Maybe we can put that back up on the slide. I think it's called the 10 Champion Strategies. So you might have to arrange for a trade-off with them. You might have to compromise with them. So, try to help others get involved, realizing that, they are resistors camouflaging as fence sitters, but how can you bring about kind of that buy-in? Yeah, that's right there. So this really does help answer some of those questions. Use some of the strategies here that you think would work best for that make-pretend fence sitter.
Okay. Ben asks, can you comment on how best to handle the increased rate of change and layered change initiatives that occur to many as too fast and too much?
Yeah, I tell you what, Ben, if I could really answer that question, I'd write a book and sell and make millions of dollars. And I say that because I'm just thinking about, Ben, the rate of change, and I mentioned this in the presentation. Rate of change has increased incredibly. And part of that, if you just think about technology alone, if you think about the rate at which information is shared, it just continues to be shorter, right, in terms of the rate at which things are present for us. So, we have to acknowledge, just as I said on that last quote, that change is our only constant. It really is. And it is occurring fast, and it is a lot. But this is really kind of I would say, the environment that all of us are working in, your organization, across industries, government, really the world. So it's here to stay. Let's find some good strategies that I've kind of shared with you. Think about ways as best as you can. You can't eat the whole elephant. Let's take a small bite at a time to be able to address what we can when we can. I hope that helps. These are great questions.
And Paul asks, how do you shape a common goal and strategy before getting input from those experiencing the change?
So I would say, Paul, shaping a common goal, I think that you should already have that, maybe as a team, right? So you already have that, you should have a goal or strategy be at the department. And quite honestly, I would be using that as the carrot to put out in front of people so that they can see how the change will help you to reach that goal. So part of, we're talking about, as I said, direction-aligned commitment. What's the direction? What's the intended endpoint for the department, for the organization? And, build on that in terms of sharing now your goal. Say, this is where we all agree we're going, and then you can say, now these are some of the things that are going to be necessary to get us there, and use that as a way to introduce change.
And do you recommend having a core team that focuses on particular change initiatives?
I think I do. I think having a core team within a team is going to be essential so that you can have that focus. But you really have to make sure that all of the stakeholders and key influencers are a part of that. So a core team, yes, but make sure you have all of the right people there as well. I think about Jim Collins' book, about what makes for great companies is having right people on the right bus in the right seat. So likewise, you really do need to have the right people a part of that team as well.
Do you think that the age or gender of a leader could influence resistance to change? If so, how would you recommend handling that?
Unfortunately, I think that's very possible, Heaven. It shouldn't, but I would be, remiss to say that, oh, no, age and gender doesn't have an influence. Let me just say that I think that part of the strategies that I've shared with you should bear fruit regardless of what your age is or what your gender is. But to say that, no, we don't have age discrimination or gender discrimination, I'm a woman, so I can't say that that doesn't happen or hasn't happened to me in the past. But you know what? Know your stuff. Get your information together. Make sure that you're following through on the strategies that you've set forth. And I absolutely believe that, you'll be the one laughing and smiling at the end. So make sure you do your homework and get those other people around you that can also help support you. So if you're a woman, make sure you can have some others with a different perspective there to help. If you're millennial or boomer, again, the beauty of having other perspectives and people there to support you is really going to be critical.
Another question is, how do you define, what is the hardest part of experiencing change?
I would say the hardest part is, it goes back to that, the emotional piece. It really is the hardest piece. It's the people part. It's the hardest part, but that's where you're going to have the greatest impact. But recognition that people get emotionally attached to things, we get comfortable. Remember I talked about, there are some people that are builders and, others might have a different style or preference for change. So recognize it and really kind of find a way to move forward.
I do want to go back to a question that Laura had submitted. It was a little bit earlier when we were talking about change and the percent of organizational change efforts needed. And she was asking about how do you define success?
Yes, so Laura, I'm going to say that's going to obviously be relative to what you're trying to accomplish. So success might be, for some, the implementation of a system or a process. But is that going to be really successful if people were, trampled on in the process or input wasn't, and so now you've got emotional Band-Aids that you're going to have to now put on people? So I think a successful change initiative is really one where you're not only focused on the systems and processes for achieving the change initiative, you're bringing people along and maybe getting their input. You know, you may be able to do an evaluation post the initiative and just asking people, you know, what went well, what could have gone better, you know, just to kind of get their evaluation. So I think success is getting things implemented, but at the same time honoring people in the process.
I just want to bring out one comment Susan shared about having others that have gone through similar change share their experience and speak to benefits and lessons learned.
Absolutely, Susan, and thanks for sharing that. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
I think we have gone through all the questions.
Great questions.
Yes. I think we have gotten through all of these. And we have also, let's see, if there are any other ones, please send them in. I think I've captured everything, hopefully, so far. And I just want to thank Shelley for contributing a great webinar today and for helping our alumni understand and recognize the process of change and transition and how to lead others through it. We hope our alumni have enjoyed this session today and will join us for a future webinar. Let's see, you'll receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording and also that self-assessment that we talked about, as well as a document on change resources and a copy of the slide deck. And don't forget to visit our CCL alumni website, CCL Connect, to assess many resources and webinars that are available to you. And we'll stay online for a few more minutes, so if we have any other questions come in, we'll address those. As you exit the webinar today, we hope you'll take a moment to complete the evaluation so we can make these alumni events well worth your time. And anyone who completes the evaluation will be entered into a drawing for a copy of the Direction Alignment Commitment Guidebook, and that's the foundation, the DAC model that Shelley referred to. And you can also request that a CCL team member follow up with you. All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us again in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone. This actually concludes today's webcast. Thank you all for attending. We will send all registrants an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, and please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts.